Hello everyone. Welcome back to English Literature, Introduction to English Literature course at the Islamic University. Last time we had a sort of probably an interesting discussion on a major Middle English figure whom we described as the father of English literature. His name is Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer is a major literary figure in the Middle English literary traditions. Geoffrey Chaucer originally was influenced by several European, mainly Italian and French writers. But in time, he realized that he has to work on something more significant than imitating European writers, which is the British identity, the English identity. And his major text, as we said last time, is the Canterbury Tales. Okay, you should know the name. The Canterbury Tales is again the long poem of 24 tales in poetic forms by Geoffrey Chaucer. We discussed some extracts from the poem, and we reflected on how these poems, how these lines, in a way or another, show a wide range of lifestyles. We discussed, for example, how the nun as a woman is trying to challenge her community by not following the rules of the church, as we probably guessed. We've seen how the knight was not the knight we read about in Old English. He's no longer Beowulf. The knight is selfish, each man for himself, and there is no other. And we've seen how the philosopher is more interested in collecting money, gold, and how, again, Chaucer uses irony to talk about this. So Middle English, the English language started to be shaped. The English as we know it now started from Middle English. When we look at the Middle English text, we can figure it out. The spelling is different, but some words can be easily figured out. We spoke about new themes. Cultural, British cultural, English cultural issues started to materialize in a way or another. We spoke about new themes, new people, especially again women started to appear in poems. At the beginning, they were objects of desire. Not good enough, but we've seen how the nun was, in a way or another, showing women how to struggle and how to show her humanity, her identity as a woman rather than as a character of desire or someone controlled by man. So going back to that class, we see again the major themes, major issues. Number one, the old English hero has become a man of love, a man of romance, a man interested in, again, collecting money, a man interested in improving his own personal status rather than sacrificing himself for the society, for the people. And then old values of religious idealism. We've seen how Caxton, remember, we must praise of God. These religious, pure, idealistic religious values have started to change, and people started to look for worldly gains. Women started to appear first as objects of desire, but later on, sometimes once in a while, there were strong women. We've seen this in Chaucer himself. At the beginning, again, remember, there has always been European influence. But at this time, England was working hard to shape its own identity. When I speak about the English identity, it's like what it takes to make an English text English. Not only the language, but also the culture and the setting maybe takes place in England, it talks about English themes and lifestyles. And again, important figures like Chaucer started to work on the national identity, to create a sense of national identity. People now can identify as English and be proud of this this identity. Literature did a great deal of help here. Okay? Now, one of the greatest national myths of that time, we'll come back to this, is King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. We'll talk about him in a bit. King Arthur is said to be from the 5th and 6th centuries. Around this time, it was an oral tradition, and later on, probably hundreds of years later, it was written down. The story tells of King Arthur. We're not sure whether there was a king. Probably there was a king whose name is Arthur, and he had knights, warriors, fighters around him. Those fighters always stood against evil, always stood for good. Until this very moment, King Arthur still, in a way or another, once in a while, shows up here in literary texts, in novels, in poetry. He's a significant English names. We speak about the rapidly changing society and how English as a language and a culture was developing at that time. We will go back to summarize the main ideas about Chaucer. Can you remind me of the major issues we mentioned about Chaucer last time, ladies? Yeah? Don't look here, don't look. Yes, please, one.
He was an excellent poet.
He was an excellent poet, an important figure, okay?
He was the father of English literature.
He was the father of English literature. What did he do? What features does his poetry have?
He gave a wide picture of
A wide picture of the English life. His poetry describes the life, mainly the middle class, the ordinary people. In Old English, remember, you had to be a religious person or a hero to be in poetry. But now more and more people started to show up. Yes?
He uses irony and describing the changing
Important point here. Irony started to be used as a tool, where you say something and you mean the opposite. You say something and you mean something else, in essence. So we've seen how the philosopher has a little gold in his coffer. For a moment, we pity the philosopher. Oh my God, he only has a little gold. But then we remember that a philosopher is supposed to be interested in knowledge. And a little gold is still probably a lot of money. So this is iron. It makes us think, oh, interesting. Makes us reconsider our positions. Okay, more? Can we talk more about Chaucer, about what things he did, what he introduced to English literature, please?
He used the rhyme, the end sound of words at the end of the
He used rhyme more clearly, but rhyme already was there. In a way or another, there was music and rhyme and rhythm, and this is Eura, remember, and the alliteration. But he also continued using the musical aspects of the rhyme and the rhythm and the music. More, please?
He wrote so much stories about
He wanted, okay, now the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer is an uncompleted work. He intended it to be about 120 stories, but he only finished 24. So he had a plan for more stories. Don't forget how, again, Chaucer brings more and more women to his poetry. And we've seen the nun in his poetry is a strong character. She's a nun, and we know what a nun is. It's supposed to be modest and coy, subjected to particular rules of the church, rules mainly devised by men. But she is all sentiment and tender heart, as he says. In a way, we probably guess that here the nun, in a way or another, is rejecting these rules. Because if a nun is supposed to be modest, even in her smiling, but here we have a nun who is all sentiment, all about emotions and love and feelings. This could be, again, part of the problem in the society he's discussing, showing how people are hypocrites, how people claim to be one thing, but in reality they are another. But could this tell us more about the nun trying to change the image of women?
Yeah.
Probably, yes. Okay, today we introduce more English texts, more English poetry. But we're not going to go in detail here, just in brief. The first text is Confessio Amantis by someone called John Gowen. Look at the name, the words are not English. In English, this means a confession or the confession of a lover. Confessio Amantis. And this again shows how the writer is affected, very good, is influenced by other European literatures, mainly French and Italian, probably German. This is a long, long poem. Remember how long Beowulf was, or other texts? This one is 33,000 lines. Oof. That's a huge, huge text. Epic and not epic, it's a romance in a way. Now, as the name suggests, this tells us the story of a person, a man who spends most of his life pursuing women, chasing nothing, not heroism, not fighting the enemies. Again, this is the changing society here, but chasing women in a way or another. And at one point in the poem, the main character decides to give up love. He said, I've done too much chasing women. I want to change. I want to be a different human being. Which is good, okay? Probably we think he's going to be a reformed person. But then we realize that he only does this because he is a very, very old man. So he only gives up love when he becomes like what, 95, 100 maybe, I don't know. So on the first reading, we say, oh, interesting. But then when we think of it, wait a minute. You're only giving up love because you are a very old man, not because you want to. And again, this is another use of irony here, where people are made fun of. In a way, we're told that this is a noble man. He's a good man because he stops doing something that is not completely good. And then we realize he doesn't stop because he wants to, but because he's an old man. So that's Confessio Amantis. The other text is Piers Plowman. The author is William Langland. This is also a long poem around. It's a long poem also. I'm not sure how many lines, but it's also a long poem here. Now, William Langland here, Piers Plowman, you also uses satire and irony. So, remember in early English, Old English, we had little irony and more religion, more heroism. But here, people started gaining, new styles, ways of lives, and now it's easy to criticize people because people are selfish, right? Hypocritical. And remember the dream vision we spoke about before? It is still a technique. So in a way, this story is told, this poem is part dream, part reality. The dream, what is a dream vision? It's a poem that feels like someone is dreaming or someone telling us a dream. So these are two main texts from two main poems from Middle English. The last major text here is Sir Gawain. And we'll stop for a moment here to talk about Sir Gawain. Now, Sir Gawain and the Knight, the Green Knight, is a very important text about 3,000 or 2,500 lines. We don't know the author of Sir Gawain. The author is anonymous. The author is anonymous. Sir Gawain, the word Sir means he is a knight. And it is said that the Sir Gawain is one of the knights of the Round Table. Remember the Round Table of King Arthur. So now Sir Gawain is a knight. The first moment we hear the word knight, we remember very quickly, we remember Beowulf. Beowulf. What is a knight? What is a hero? What is a sir? A man who's supposed to be honest,
Brave.
honorable, brave, selfless. A man who sacrifices himself for the sake of others, to protect others, to bring safety like Beowulf. And this was the major idea behind King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Now what happens in this poem, this long poem of 2,500 lines, is that one knight, a huge green knight, like dressed in green, disguised in green, a man, a knight, on a green horse, shows up at the place where King Arthur was. And he says, I challenge any one of you to a duel, to a fight. This challenge includes someone to cut the green knight's head, to chop off his head, not only killing him, cutting off his head. If you manage to do so, in a year, after exactly a year or a year and a day, I will come back and I will cut your head off. And at the moment, no one wants to. See how changed the knights are? And then King Arthur says, okay, I'll do it. But Sir Gawain, who is a relative of King Arthur, steps up and says, okay, I'll do it. And he cuts the head of the Green Knight. His head rolls down, and of course he's not dead because he uses magic. And this is a myth. It's a myth. It's a fictional story. So far, so good. Sir Gawain is good, he's strong, he's brave. He, in a way, sacrificed himself for King Arthur. Now, when the end of the year nears, Sir Gawain goes out to look for the Green Knight. He finds a palace, he stays there for a while, and in a way or another, he is tempted, he's seduced by the wife of the Lord. A woman there seduces him, tempts him. In a way, he falls in love with her. Although he was in a mission to, in a way, to pay the debt. Because he vowed, he promised, and a knight shouldn't break his word. So after a long story, Sir Gawain is given some kind of a belt by the woman, by the lady of the palace. And this, if he puts on this belt, he can't be killed. No one can kill him. What does he do?
Uses the belt.
Now originally, a knight, a sir, should not be, will not be, cannot be, must not be deceitful. He shouldn't lie. He's honorable. He's honest. He doesn't break his promise. Now he goes searching for the Green Knight, and the Green Knight tries to kill him, but he fails. And then at the end, we realize that the Green Knight is the man, the lord of the castle. He's the husband of the woman who gave him the belt. So he discovers this whole thing, like he uncovers this whole thing, and now Sir Gawain is highly embarrassed. Oh, please, I beg of you, don't tell people what I did. Please, I'm a knight. Don't defame me. And he begs for forgiveness. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I cheated. And for this, the Green Knight forgives him. He goes back to King Arthur. Now, when he comes back, it's like, whoa, Sir Gawain is supposed to be dead, right? Because he cut off the head a year ago, and his head should be cut by now. But when he comes back, people think that he is the hero, the fighter, the man that kills, cuts off the head of the knight, and the knight can't cut his head off. So he's celebrated as a hero, as a brave hero. But in reality, as readers, as audience, we know that he is a deceitful, a liar, and a cheater. My question is, who is the main character in this poem, this long poem? Sir Gawain. He's the main character. The main character is the character who takes a lot of space. In a way, he's the hero. But what does he do? Does he achieve something? Does he do something like Beowulf? Is he a hero? He's a main character. He's a fake hero. He's a false hero. He's exactly as we have here in the book. He's an anti-hero. An important term we should know. In modern literature, in movies nowadays, there are so many anti-heroes. The main character who basically does nothing. Now, the first anti-hero in the history of English literature is probably Sir Gawain. And see how people at that time were thinking ahead of their time. This is something new and modern, where a main character is not the hero. So what is anti-hero again? Do heroic things. Is a main character who, unlike, for example, Beowulf, doesn't do anything. Doesn't do heroic, doesn't do important things. Later on, this will be a major theme and a major technique in English literature and world literature, and even in movies in the 20th century. What does this tell us again about the time? It tells us how the society was changing. People were changing values. Yeah, they started to use, for example, deceitful ways to get to their aims. Now that's Sir Gawain. In brief, Sir Gawain, as a knight, he's supposed to be honest and honorable, right? Is he honest and honorable? He's not that honest, he's not that honorable. He basically does nothing. And, okay, Sir Gawain is the anti-hero, perhaps the first in English literature. Now, we move from poetry to drama. We're not going to go into detail here because we'll focus on Renaissance drama next week. But again, basic things about medieval drama is that it was highly biblical drama. You know, the stories of the drama of that age were taken from the Bible. That's the basic thing we need to know. So they would take a story of some saint, a story of certain prophets or certain people, bad or good, from the Bible, and they would be performed either in the church or around the church. Don't forget, the Bible was in what language at that time?
Latin.
It was Latin. So perhaps the actors will be, talking about something, and the audience, the English people, would be like, huh? What's going on? But again, because of the drama and the performance, it's easier. The difference between poetry, listen, drama was written in verse, even until the 17th century. Drama was written in verse, in poetry. But the difference between poetry and drama, very good. Drama was supposed to be acted, was composed to be performed on a stage. And poetry was written basically to be sung. But both are written in poetry. The drama of this time is called mystery drama or miracle drama, any of the terms, because they would take miraculous and mysterious events or people from the Bible and they would act them. The purpose is to teach people good values, religious values, how to be good, how not to be bad. This basically. So, is this an act of literary expression? Could be, but it was mainly the church aiming to educate, to teach people the Christian values. And again, we go back how the church itself wrote down many old English texts, and now the church is also part of the development of the play. Now, a very important, probably the most important invention in the history of literature in general and production and writing and books is the invention of the printing press. What is the printing press? What is the printing press? Okay. It's the invention of the machine.
A printing machine that printed books and paper.
Okay. How do you think people made books before this?
Written down.
Copying down. They would copy down. Sometimes, well, in the videos I think we're going to watch in a bit, it says that sometimes it took over a year to copy one copy of the Bible. 1 year. I'm not sure how many people would it take, probably one, probably two or more, and you spend one whole year copying a book. That is why books were very rare and very expensive. Wasn't easy to produce them, wasn't easy to also buy them, probably expensive. Now there's this very famous man called Gutenberg, and as the name suggests, he's German. Although some people say, no, it wasn't Gutenberg who first invented the printing press, but it's a very important invention. Why is it important? Because now there is mass production of books. You don't just make 1, 2, 10 copies. You can easily make hundreds of copies. Not easily, but still a lot easier than copying the book by hand. So the printing press was the invention of, as many people suggest, Gutenberg. He's a German man. What we care about is what William Caxton did. William Caxton here in the 1470s, in the second half of the 15th century, that's almost 500 years ago, he brought the printing press to London, to England. And soon after, the first book that was printed, was the Bible, of course, the Bible. It is said that Gutenberg himself, in 2 years, made 100 copies of the Bible. 100 copies in 2 years. We just said that probably it takes more than 1 year for one person to copy one copy of the Bible.
And made printing easier.
Made it very easy, probably cheaper, and faster, and that's the most important thing. This is what we call mass production. We'll talk about the technique in a bit, but this is what we care about more here. William Caxton, a very famous name. Listen, he's not the inventor of the printing press. He brought it to England, and the first book, naturally, to be printed is the Bible. But the first literary book is King Arthur. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. It was the first literature book to be printed by in England, and the first literary book in Germany and also in England. Yeah. Now, other books that were, of course, printed at that time, Chaucer, probably Beowulf. Okay, so don't forget this. Let's see this video, this very short video of the printing press. Now, again, look at this, watch, and we'll see, we'll comment on this video. But
Passages, Treasures of the Bible, presents the Gutenberg printing press. In the mid-1400s, Johannes Gutenberg, a goldsmith from Mainz, Germany, revolutionized the world with the creation of the printing press. By incorporating a modified wine press and a set of Latin letters that could be interchanged, known as movable type, Gutenberg created one of the first presses used to make books in an efficient manner. This opened the door for mass printing of books and made literature more accessible for the common person. The apprentice here is shown operating a replica of Gutenberg's press. As you can see, this type of printing took a lot of work, but was quicker than hand copying books. In just under 2 years, Gutenberg was able to print nearly 190 Latin Bibles.
190 to 100.
Normally, a scribe would take the same amount of time to copy one Bible by hand. See this press in action at Passages, Treasures of the Bible. The exhibit is currently on display in Springfield, Missouri.
Okay, so basically the printing press at that time would again, very quickly replace handwriting, hand copying. So we have almost 200 copies of the Bible in 2 years, the same period that would take one person to copy one copy. Now, generally, the idea was to have so many letters of the alphabet, A, B, B, etc., C, and C capital and small, and to have as many letters as possible in metal. And then you put the letters, if you want to write a particular page, whatever the page is, you arrange the letters to give you this text. Okay? Like first, God created the world, or let's say, assume, because this text was not written by then, but April is the cruelest month. So what they do is they bring people to arrange the letters to produce this whole page. You have a whole text written as we saw in the video, and they bring the letters to make the text they have on a particular page. Could be one page, could be 2 pages. And what happens is that they soak this with ink. They put a lot of ink. And they bring hundreds of pages, of sheets of paper, and they start to make, for example, this is, when they arrange this, I'm not sure how long it takes to arrange the letters of one page, one day, 2 days, not sure. It takes a bit of time. But once you have the text here of a particular page and the ink, you make as many copies of this as possible. If you want, okay, we want 100 copies. You make 100 pages. And you put it aside, and you go to the second page, and you scramble the letters, and you start over again. And then you bring them together, and you have 100, 200, 300 copies of a particular book. It's still slow, still very hard work, but a lot faster. It's not faster, it's a lot faster, because, again, almost 200 Bibles in 2 years, and we have probably the same amount of time that would take one man to handwrite one copy of the Bible. This is the most important invention here, because it helped mass production of literature. Mass production of literature. Do you have any questions so far? So in brief, in addition to Chaucer, we have other minor texts like Confessio Amantis and Piers Plowman. And then we have a major text, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Who's the author? Anonymous. What is it about? It's about the rapidly changing society, about false knighthoods and knights, etc. Now, a final name in Middle English is some poet called John Skelton. Before we comment on John Skelton, can someone please read his poem and raise your voice as much as possible? Vengeance.
Vengeance I ask and cry, by way of exclamation, on the whole of nation, of cats, wild and tame, God send them sorrow and shame.
Very good. Yeah, one more. Say vengeance.
Vengeance I ask and cry, by way of
Exclamation. Exclamation point. Exclamation mark? Yeah, by way. Yes.
On the whole nation of cats, wild and tame, God send them sorrow and shame.
Very good. One more. Over there, please.
Vengeance I ask and cry, by way of exclamation, of the whole nation, cats, wild and tame, God send them sorrow and shame.
Very good. One final reading. Loud and clear.
Vengeance I ask and cry, by way of exclamation, on the whole nation of cats, wild and tame, God send them sorrow and
Vengeance I ask and cry, by way of exclamation, on the whole nation of cats, wild and tame. God send them sorrow and shame. God send them sorrow and shame. What is this poem about? By the way, it seems to be like, a text for kids that is written probably around these times, right? Because the text is about cats. Someone is complaining about cats, probably a bird or a rat or a mouse. What does the text communicate with you? What does it tell you? What do you notice about the text?
It's between cats and sparrows.
Okay. So the main character, the speaker here, is no longer a hero. No longer a man even. New characters, new themes, new people started to appear. This is a bird, a pet bird, by the name of Philip the Sparrow. He's complaining about all cats, not only wild cats, but also tame cats. He's asking for revenge. He's wishing for revenge. And at the end, we have this prayer to God. The prayer is no longer a prayer for you, to be good and to go to paradise, to heaven. God, send these cats sorrow and shame. This is a funny, very humorous text, very funny text. Listen, for so many people, then poetry was should be the texts, the literature of the elite, the high class. Only important, educated people, the king, the queen, the palace, serious language, serious themes. But again, we have in the Middle English era people who started to change this, to include other things. In a way, in my opinion, I think this is a text that was written for children, for kids, to challenge again the idea that poetry is serious and poetry is for the rich people, the famous people, the educated people. This is the poet telling us, John Skelton telling us, poetry is for everyone. It could be also about anything. It doesn't have to be serious, highly sophisticated and difficult language. It could be anything. Another explanation could be the fact that this is a symbolic poem. Symbolism when you use animals instead of people, or an allegory. Like the stories, the fables of Aesop, when the mouse and the lion. We love these stories. We appreciate them. We memorize them. We remember them. But we also learn some values. We learn some lessons. Is probably the bird here someone, a person, an ordinary person, a poor man, complaining about the rich people, the king, the church, the government, maybe?
Cats is still weak.
But cats still can threaten a mouse, a bird, a pet. So we end here by commenting on John Skelton. John Skelton is one of the late Middle English poets. He brought new themes, new styles. He used humor and fun. For him, poetry is for all. Poetry is about everything. It doesn't have to be about battles and wars and irony and knights. It could be about cats and birds. Poetry is for everyone. And leading to the most important conclusion here, he shows the perfect example of strong sense of English language and English identity in literature, in language, in thinking. England, in a way, was trying to free itself from the influences of Europe and, European countries like Italy and France and Germany and Latin. Do you have any question so far? Go on.
Does cats and birds symbolize something in specific, or the writer chose them randomly?
What do you think? Do cats here symbolize something? Does the bird symbolize something? Think of this. We probably can talk about this later on. But we have this in Arabic. برز الثعلب يوما for Ahmad Shawqi. It's a poem we love. It's a poem for kids. We can sing. We can enjoy singing. But there is a political message. Yes. مخطئ من ظن يوما أن للثعلب دينا is a political message against the British occupation of Egypt at that time. But why would people use symbolism and animals instead of using real characters? Punishment, thank you, to avoid punishment. also to make it easier for people to remember and memorize, to understand. There's an implied message here. Finally,
Mainly because he wants his poem to be published.
he wants his poem to be published. If he criticizes the political, establishment, they're going to say, no publishing for you. Okay, thank you very much. We stop here. We end our discussion of major texts in Middle English. Next time, we do Renaissance literature and Shakespeare.